Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have so much wealth that you feel untouchable? Imagine a world where your bank account balance reaches dizzying heights, where every whim and fancy can be satisfied with a mere swipe of a card. It's a world where the rules that govern the lives of ordinary people seem irrelevant, a world where the ultra-rich often feel they are above the law. This belief doesn't stem from thin air. It's rooted in the psychology of wealth and power, a fascinating area of study that has intrigued experts for years. Psychologists suggest that immense wealth can often distort an individual's perception of reality. They begin to view themselves as invincible, untouchable, immune to the laws that bind the rest of us. Stanford psychologist Paul Piff, in his research, found that the rich are more likely to break laws while driving, lie in negotiations, cheat to increase their chances of winning a prize, and endorse unethical behavior at work. It's not that they are inherently bad people, it's just that the extreme wealth they possess can sometimes blind them to the consequences of their actions. This illusion of invincibility is further reinforced by society. The more wealth a person accumulates, the more power and influence they wield. This power often shields them from the repercussions of their actions, making them feel as though they are above the law. They begin to operate in a bubble, a world detached from the realities of the average person, a world where they believe they can act without consequence. But can they really? As we journey through the annals of history, we find numerous instances where the ultra-rich, those who believed themselves to be invincible, eventually fell from grace. Their wealth, their power, their influence, none of it could shield them from the long arm of the law. But as we will see, the long arm of the law stretches further than some might think. The illusion of invincibility, as intoxicating as it may be, is just that, an illusion. No matter how high one might rise, the law remains an ever-looming presence, ready to remind us all of our inherent human fallibility. Consider the story of Elizabeth Holmes, once the youngest self-made billionaire. This is a tale of ambition and deception, of a brilliant rise to fame and a precipitous fall from grace. Holmes was a Stanford dropout who, at just 19 years old, founded Theranos, a health technology company. She promised to revolutionize healthcare with a device that could conduct extensive blood tests from just a few drops of blood. Holmes's charisma and vision lured in high-profile investors, and her net worth skyrocketed to an estimated $4.5 billion. She graced the covers of magazines, was compared to visionaries like Steve Jobs, and was celebrated as a pioneering female entrepreneur in a male-dominated industry. But beneath the surface of this success story, a different narrative was brewing. The groundbreaking technology Holmes touted didn't work. Her claims were based on smoke and mirrors, on falsified test results and manipulated demos. The truth began to unravel when investigative journalists and whistleblowers started to question the legitimacy of Theranos' technology. Holmes's empire began to crumble. In 2016, federal regulators banned her from owning or operating a medical laboratory. By 2018, Holmes was facing multiple charges of fraud. It became clear that the youngest self-made female billionaire had built her fortune on a lie. The trial of Elizabeth Holmes captivated the world. She was found guilty of multiple counts of fraud, her reputation irreparably tarnished. The woman who once promised to revolutionize healthcare was now a symbol of corporate deceit. Holmes's story serves as a stark reminder that no amount of wealth or influence can shield one from the consequences of their actions. Despite her initial success, Holmes was not above the law. Her downfall underscores the fact that, even in the face of immense power and wealth, justice can and will prevail. Despite her wealth and influence, Holmes wasn't able to evade justice. Another tale of riches to ruin involves Bernie Madoff, the man behind the largest Ponzi scheme in history. Bernie Madoff, a well-regarded financier, had a reputation that was as solid as the Rock of Gibraltar. He was the former chairman of NASDAQ, and his investment firm was considered among the most reliable on Wall Street. But beneath this facade of respectability, Madoff was orchestrating a deception of colossal proportions. He convinced investors to pour billions into his firm, promising high returns that were too good to be true. And indeed, they were not true. The returns were not the result of savvy investments, but rather, they were paid out from the funds of new investors, a classic Ponzi scheme. For years, Madoff's scheme flew under the radar. His reputation, coupled with the complexity of his operations, kept suspicions at bay. The illusion was so convincing that even sophisticated investors were drawn into the web of deceit. But like all Ponzi schemes, it was unsustainable. The house of cards collapsed in the face of the 2008 financial crisis. When Madoff could no longer sustain the payouts, he confessed to his sons, who reported him to the authorities. The legal consequences were swift and severe. In 2009, Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison, the maximum sentence for his crimes. His personal assets were seized, and restitution was ordered for his victims. The fallout was devastating. Investors lost billions, and the shockwaves were felt across the financial world. This was no ordinary scam. This was a betrayal of trust that shook the very foundations of investment banking. Madoff's story is yet another testament to the fact that wealth cannot shield one from the consequences of their actions. No matter how high one climbs, the rule of law has a longer reach, and when the fall comes, it's a long way down. Harvey Weinstein, once a powerful figure in Hollywood, also found that his wealth couldn't protect him forever. Weinstein, a name that was once synonymous with the glitz and glamour of Tinseltown, quickly became a symbol of the darker underbelly of Hollywood. He was a man who had the power to make or break careers, a man who believed he was untouchable. But as the saying goes, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. Weinstein's legal battle began in earnest in October of 2017, when a series of allegations surfaced, accusing him of sexual misconduct. Over 80 women, many of them well-known actresses, came forward with stories that painted a picture of a man who used his power and influence to exploit and abuse. The public outcry was swift and intense. Still, Weinstein attempted to evade justice. His team of high-priced lawyers worked tirelessly, trying to discredit the accusers and cast doubt on their stories. But the tide was turning against him. The #MeToo movement, which had been ignited by the allegations against Weinstein, was gaining momentum. Women around the world were standing up, speaking out, and demanding justice. It took 2 years for Weinstein's case to go to trial, 2 years of legal maneuvering, of pleas for leniency, of attempts to shift blame. But in February of 2020, the jury delivered their verdict, guilty. Weinstein was convicted of rape and a criminal sex act, and sentenced to 23 years in prison. The legal battle of Harvey Weinstein is a stark reminder that no one is above the law. It's a testament to the courage of the women who came forward, who refused to be silenced, who stood up to a man who thought his wealth and power could protect him. Weinstein's fall from grace shows that no amount of money can buy one's way out of justice. These stories serve as a sobering reminder that no one is truly above the law. From Elizabeth Holmes to Bernie Madoff, from Harvey Weinstein to countless others, we've seen time and time again how wealth and power can create an illusion of invincibility. But that illusion shatters as soon as justice catches up. It's easy to get caught up in the glitz and glamour of wealth, the allure of power, and the illusion that these things make one untouchable. But let's take a moment to reflect on these narratives. They're not just tales of downfall and ruin. They're cautionary tales that remind us of the importance of holding everyone accountable for their actions, regardless of their financial status. Wealth does not grant immunity from the law. It shouldn't provide a shield against the consequences of one's actions. The scales of justice should remain balanced, not tipped in favor of those who can afford the best lawyers or the most influential connections. Yet it's not just about the famous cases that make the headlines. It's about the everyday situations, the instances of injustice that go unnoticed, unreported. It's about the corporate tycoon who mistreats his employees, the wealthy landlord who exploits his tenants, the affluent individual who thinks he can break the rules because he has the means to evade the consequences. We all have a role to play in promoting justice. It could be as simple as standing up against unfair treatment in our workplaces, or as complex as advocating for legal reforms. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to a larger movement towards equality and fairness. So let's not just be passive observers of these stories. Let's learn from them, let's grow from them. Let's challenge the systems that allow wealth to be used as a shield against accountability. Remember, the pursuit of justice doesn't discriminate based on wealth. And so we urge you to promote justice where you can, to ensure that no one, regardless of their financial standing, can escape the consequences of their misdeeds.